Okay, we're going to start the new chapter. It's called Egla Rufa, correct? So we're holding 44b. We thank Hashem we're able to learn Torah every day. It's of our learning. We should have the basic mikdash immediately. Can you bring me the chumash? It's down over there. Okay, the chapter's about the Egla Rufa, which is the heifer, not the red heifer, but the heifer. That's that the neck is broken when they find someone dead in between cities. So it says like this: if a murder victim is found lying in the field in the land which God, your God, is giving you as a possession. Because it's before they went into the land of Israel. So it's talking about that it's only going to take place in the land of Israel. And it's not known who killed them. Your senior judges should go out and they should measure the distance from where the corpse is laying. Now it says the senior judges, it says, that we'll see soon. And they will measure the distance from where the corpse is laying to the cities around the corpse in each direction. What will happen is that from the city closest to the corpse, the elders of that city should take a female calf. So there's two elders here. There's the elders of the court, and there's the elders of the city. The elders of the court did the measuring, the senior judges, and then the elders of the city take a female calf which has never been used for work, one that has never drawn a yoke. So it has two requirements there. Couldn't have been used for work, couldn't have drawn a yoke. Drawn with the yoke, right? The elders of the city should bring the calf down to the rock-hard valley. It's called the Nachal Esan, which was never tilled or sown. There in the valley, they should break the calf's neck. The priests, the sons of Levi, should draw near, for God, your God, has chosen them to serve him, to issue blessings in the name of God, and to pass judgment on every controversy and lesion. Well, what do? All the elders of the city, which is close to the corpse, should wash their hands over the calf that was decapitated in the valley. They should announce and proclaim, our hands did not do anything that might have indirectly caused this bloodshed, nor did our eyes see this crime. And the priests then say, atone for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, O God. Do not place the liability of innocent blood among your people Israel. The blood will thus be atoned for them. If the murderer is found, then you execute him and eliminate the shedding of innocent blood from among you, and you will thus do what is proper in the eyes of God. This is the end of Parsha Shoftim. Okay, now the Mishnah says, Egla Rufa Blashna Kodesh. That little statement that the Levium said, not the Levium, the Kayanim, the elders said that our hands did not spill this blood. You have to say that in Hebrew. And then the Kayanim say, Kapal Amchi Yisrael, all of that is in Hebrew. How do we know that? Shnemer ki yimatzi chal ba'adam. And now the Gemara is going to ask that, 1 second. That doesn't tell me that it needs to be in Hebrew. So we'll wait for the Gemara to get that. But the pasuk that it quotes is that if you find a corpse laying on the ground, and the elders and the judges will go out. And there's 3 people from the court, the high court in Yerushalayim, that would go out. That's the opinion of the Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda says that there were 5 people. It says Zekinecha, which is a plural. There's a yud in there. It means 2 elders. Sheftecha, judges. There's a yud. It's plural. That means that there's 2 judges. So that's a total of 4 already. And vein best in shakol, we never have a best in of an equal number, because what happens when there's a conflict? You'll have to add 1. So we add 1 already now. And so there's 5. That's Rabbi Yehuda's view. First opinion 3. Rabbi Yehuda's view is 5. That's how many people would go and do the measurement. Nimtza taman begal leitali be'ilan aitzafal pnei hamayim. Let's say the corpse was hidden in a mound of something, pile of stones, or it was hanging from a tree, or it was floating on water. They would not break the neck. Shenemar You don't have stones in the bold letters. You have stones in the commentary, right?
Right.
Right. Right. That's a commentary. Okay, which is fine. Usually it's Rashi explains that. V'leitam and Begal, Neifel, if it's 1 second, did I say? But we go through the verse to explain why. Ba'adama, it says on the ground, V'leitam and Begal, and not hidden in a pile of stones. Neifel says fallen. That means it can't be hanging on the tree. We're re-quoting the verse here to show these details. Basada in the field, not if it's floating on the water. And let's say it's near the border city, or it's next to a city that's majority not Jewish, idolaters, or it's next to a city that doesn't have a court, then loihayu are orphan. Now, the commentary here says, that's another version, they wouldn't measure. You only measure to a city that has a bestin. Now, it's a little bit unclear. So measure to the city that has the bestin. Sounds like we're not measuring at all, but it turns out that maybe we are measuring. Right, but let's say it's next to, I don't know, Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah, which hunting city?
Which doesn't have a bestin. Oh no, they did have a bestin, right?
Right.
So would you measure to Boston, or do you measure to, or do you not measure at all?
It's close. Oh, that's commentary, right? It's close to a city.
If it's close to a city without a bestin, so you don't measure, right?
Right. So it's far from
the
city.
So, but let's say there is, but it says, you only measure to a city that has a bestin. So why don't we just measure to the further city that has the bestin? Are we doing that, or are we not doing that? Yeah, we definitely ignore the city without the bestin,
right.
But can we measure it to a city that's a little further that has the bestin? Which means we do or we don't. So we do or we don't. No. Here's the corpse. Okay, the city next to it doesn't have a bestin. The city a little further does. So do we measure to the one that's further, or we don't measure at all? You do measure to the one that's further. You do.
Yeah.
You do. Okay, fine.
You agree?
No, I'm fine with it if you do, because the first statement said that you don't do it at all. Nimtza samach or le'ir she'im b'bestin. The first statement says loy hayu arfin. You do not. You don't do it.
Our commentary.
How about the first? It was said in that. The first one says, the rabbi said, or close to a city that is without urban, and then it says to a city that has urban.
Even if there's another city like Boston, it's closer to the corpse, it does not have a rabbinical court. It's not taken into consideration. The measurements, so like skip it.
Yes, that seems to be a contradiction, right? Okay. My comma, let's see.
Yeah. There's no yoke and no work. How do you use a calf for work without a yoke?
You can put other things on it to pull a load of some sort, or just to carry a bundle, your jacket, some work, hang your tools. Micah Amar, the Gemara starts off with a question on where do you get this from, that the statements need to be made in Hebrew. He quoted a pasuk, and the pasuk has nothing to do with that. Amar Rabavo explains Hachi Kamar. This is what it means to say Shenamar. There's a sentence missing in the Mishnah. It says Va'anu va'amru. They respond and they say, and then there's another place where it says, talking about the blessings and the curses that were taking place at Mount Gerizim and Mount Eval. Over there it says, V'anu halavim v'amru. The Levium responded and they said, Ma aniya amur la'alan b'lashon kodesh. Just like we learned in other places that when the Levium spoke over there, the blessings and the curses, it was in Hebrew. Afkan b'lashon kodesh also here needs to be in Hebrew, in the holy tongue. Then the Mishnah goes on to explain V'seider egla rufa ketzad. How was it done? And we quote the pasuk that we quoted. But this was not in reference to that it's in Hebrew. No, I skipped. Okay. What happened is what the Mishnah is doing is it's getting into this by saying that we're going to talk in Hebrew, because that's the significance of this coming into Sech B'Saita. So you say in Hebrew, okay, that was like the other things that we had to say in Hebrew, the whole discussion, the Saita thing that was in Hebrew, right? So now we say, okay, and now that we're talking about the Egla Rufa, we'll continue explaining the Egla Rufa. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Chamisha, Rabbi Yehuda says that there were 5 judges. Tana Rabbanan, it was taught in a brisa. Your elders and your judges will go out. Zikinecha Shnayim. When it says your elders, it's a plural, it means 2. V'shivtecha says your judges, 2. Shnayim, it's a plural. In Bezdin Shakal, you can't have a Bezdin that's equal. So you add 1 more, that makes 5. To Rabbi Yehuda. That's the words of Rabbi Yehuda. That was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Second.
So
I'm sorry, I muted. Unmute.
the Zakanim refers to from the city, and Shoftim refers from the based in.
No, actually, they both refer to the best. Later on, we're going to have a second Zakanim. It's going to be V'hayridu Ziknei Ha'ir Hahi. That's going to be a different Zakanim.
So what's the point of calling them by different names? What am I missing?
Zakinecha v'shevtecha.
Yeah.
And your judges, the Gemara is going to discuss that now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's 5. Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Shimon Aimer. Reb Shimon says Zakinecha Shnayim. Bein best in Shakal Mesifin Le'edech Reconciliation. Says Zakinecha, your elders. That means 2. Okay, so you have to add on one more, so that's 3, because it has to be. It can't be equal. Reb Shimon Nami Yaksiv v'Shevtecha. What does Reb Shimon do? It says in your judges. It says Humi Bailelim Yichadim Sheb'Shevtecha. That's just telling you which type of Zakanim you were going to get. You were going to get the Zakanim from the Sanhedrin. Your unique judges, unique elders, but it's not telling you that you have to take from them also. Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? How do you know that it's from the Sanhedrin? It says, Mizikne Zakinecha Nafka. He learns it because it says Zakinecha, could have said Mizikne. The fact that it didn't say Zikne, Zakinecha, that teaches me that it's the Sanhedrin. Reb Shimon could do that as well. It says Ikas Rachmana Zikne, if it would just say Zikne, Avamina Fila Zikne Ashuk. I could have thought Zikne means the elders from the marketplace, which means not the judges. Because Rachmana Zekinecha. It says Zekinecha to teach me that it's your elders, it means the judges. Because of Rachmana Zekinecha. But if it was Zekinecha, then I could have just thought, Havamina Fila Sanhedrin Ketana, even the Sanhedrin, even judges from the 23 Sanhedrin. Because Rachmana V'Shevtecha L'Michadim Sheb'Shevtecha. Then it needs to be the Sanhedrin of 71. So it appears. Rabbi Yehuda Gamar Zikne Mizikne Eider. Rabbi Yehuda says, I know that Zikne could have meant elders from the marketplace, but I have a Gzeira Shava. I have a verbal analogy. It says in one place Zikne and it says in another place Zikne, just like another place when it says Zikne, it's talking about Zikne Eider, which is the Sanhedrin. So over here when it says Zikne, it's teaching me that it's the Sanhedrin. Malahala and Michadim Shabeida, Afkan Michadim Shabeida. Just like over there, it was talking about if the Sanhedrin makes a mistake and the people follow their ruling, they have to bring a special par helam davar. You have to bring a special sacrifice to atone for that mistake. Well, who does that? That would only be the Sanhedrin. Okay, so we know the Sanhedrin. What's Rabbi Yehuda? Igamar, if he knows that it's from the Sanhedrin, Ligmar Lakula Milsami Hasam, then he could learn everything from there, which would mean, why does he say that it's and Zekenecha v'Sheiftecha Lamali? Why do I need to say that it's Zekenecha and Sheiftecha? How do I know that it's 5? I should really have, if he's learning from the Sanhedrin, then it should be the whole Sanhedrin. Ella vav v'Sheiftecha l'minyana. Rather, what we're going to do now is we're going to say that he is not really learning from, he's not learning from the Gzeir Shava. So how does he know that it's the Sanhedrin? He learns like Reb Shimon learns. That we're talking about Sheiftecha. Sheiftecha teaches me the Sanhedrin. So how does he know how many people there are? If he's using Sheiftecha, how does he know that it's 5? So he says the Vav teaches me that I need an extra 2. The Kenecha teaches me 2. This Sheiftecha teaches me, the Vav teaches me another 2. Sheiftecha teaches me that it's the Sanhedrin. Okay? In Reb Shimon, Vav le'mashmalei. Reb Shimon doesn't use the Vav. He says, I don't think you can learn anything from the Vav. So what we're holding now is that the word Zekenecha teaches me 2. Reb Yehuda has an extra Vav, teaches me another 2. How do I know these people come from the Sanhedrin? It says Sheiftecha. And it's either 5 or 3 members that come to do this measurement. Elamayata, on top of 45. That's the case. Yatsu Shnayim, Umadadu Shnayim. If you're going to take the words that that we're going to say, it starts off the Yatsu. That's the verb. They go out. Madadu, and they should measure. Over there, how many people is it? Yatsu, it has to be a plural. It has to be 2. How many people measure? It would be 2. So we're holding by 9 already, because it's really 8, right? The Yatsu is 2. The Zekenecha is 2. The Vav is 2. And then Madadu is 2. And now you have to make it equal, so it'd be 9. And the Reb Shimon, Arikan Shiva, according to Reb Shimon, that doesn't use the Vav, there would be 7. It says, no, Ahumi Baile Lekadetanya. You can't learn how many people there are from those verbs of Yatsu and Umadadu. They go out and they measure. Because we need it for what it teaches in a Brisa. Yatsu says when they go out, it's coming to teach me Hein v'lei shluchayim, that it has to be the Sanhedrin themselves that go to do the measuring. You can't send just a measuring team. What do they call the people that measure land? Surveyors. Can send the surveyors. Umadadu.
It's less per hour. Cheaper than judges. Judges are $50 an hour.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Our economics professor says that it would have been cheaper to use the surveyors than to use the judges.
So make sure that they don't use them, right?
So they have to make sure that they don't use the surveyors. So, and then they have to measure. Even if they see it clearly, like it's so obvious that you don't even have to measure, you still have to do the measuring. Take out the measuring tape and measure, even though it's like, really, you have to measure this? Can't you see it? No, you still have to do the measuring. Mitzvah lasik b'medid, it's a mitzvah to do the measuring. That's what we learned from that. So we learned special halachos from that, not how many judges there were. We learned from that other halachos. Okay.
And today, when you want to survey your house, even though it's written at a certain distance, they still measure everything, even though it's measured 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
They find things change because the hedges move over, or
Right.
somebody puts usually they measure every little thing.
Well, today the measuring is probably easier because they can use like these what do they see exactly?
I think it's like with lasers, with a receiver.
But that's a modern way of doing this. In the olden days, what would they do? They would go on the ground and they would use this counter, they would roll it, and it would be like a counter of how many feet.
I don't think they had that. I was wondering when these measurements.
Whether you use just a big stick.
String. It's the string. Measure the up and down, up and down, up and down. As opposed to-
Right. Right.
But at that time, how
Right.
how they measure could be miles.
Moving the string.
Right.
Your car and you do an odometer, right? You just drive it and see, okay, it's a mile.
Yeah, but then when it turns,
Yeah.
you can't.
I don't think the wagon had an odometer back then.
So, Mastis and the like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Our Mishnah does not fit with Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The Tanya, because it was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, "Zekinecha zu Sanhedrin." It says Zekinecha means the Sanhedrin. Shiftecha is a melech v'kohen gadol. He held that you really have to get the biggest people in the country to come. If there's a murder, they have to come and they have to
Oh,
show that they disapprove. Well, you have to get the Sanhedrin to come, you have to get the king and the kohen gadol to come down. Melech, how do you know that Shiftecha means the melech? The melech b'mishpat yamid haaretz, the king in judgment, he will stand the earth. And kohen gadol, how do you know? You have a pasuk that says you'll come to the kohen, to the kohenim, to Levium, to the judge. You see that the kohen is called the judge. Okay, so we said that our Mishnah is not Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. We don't even attempt to try to fix that up. Ibayilahu. Gemara has a question. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Melech v'kohen gadol hu depalig. He definitely adds in that you need the king and you also need the kohen gadol. Aval b'Sanhedrin, ikar Rabbi Yehuda, ikar Rabbi Shimon really. When it comes to the judges themselves, when it says Sanhedrin, how many did he want? Could have wanted 3 or he could have wanted 5, depending on if he would go like Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't tell us, but he's not arguing that it's 3 or 5. He'll pick one of them. We don't which one. We don't know right now, but it's one of them. Maybe the Sanhedrin nami palagadik kol Sanhedrin. Maybe just like he needs the king and the judge and the king and the kohen gadol, maybe he wants all 71 judges to go. This is the question of the yeshiva. Rav Yosef Tashima. Yosef says maybe we can answer this from the following brisa. It says Matzon Zakin Mamre. If Abei Pagi, V'himra alayim. Let's say they ask one of the elders. They asked him what he holds about a certain thing, and he disagrees with the whole Sanhedrin. And how do they translate Beit Pagi? Is they translate it like outside the city? And what do they say?
there are several opinions as to the identity of this place. Seems 2 different places were known by that name. Some say that Page is related to the Greek and Greek Pagain, meaning eat. According to this explanation, Pagi means a place where one is allowed to eat sanctified meat of offering, which is consideration within the borders of considered to be within the borders of Yerushalayim.
Okay, it's at the edge at the border of Yerushalayim. And is there another opinion?
Yeah, another neighborhood next to Yerushalayim, perhaps called so due to the small figs that grew there.
No, Pagi is small figs.
Yeah, small. Pagi, small
Okay.
Pagi.
Yeah.
They have the yeshiva there.
Well, what's happening here is that the elder is going to the edge of the city. The elders are going to the edge of the city. He's going to rebel against their statement. He's going to paskin differently. He's not going to give in. And should we say that his rebellion and his psak, that he's not listening to them, should we say that he becomes a zakin mamre because of this psak, even though the Sanhedrin isn't in its proper location? We say no. The only time that when he argues with them, he becomes a Zaken Mamre, that's only if he's in the location of the Sanhedrin. He has to be in the courthouse, which is in the Lishkas Agasis. The pasuk says you'll go up to the place. Means it has to be the place. Okay, now the Gemara says, how many people were you talking about when you had this discussion and you said that they were at base Pagi and he rebelled and he paskins differently than the Sanhedrin? How many people were there? Now you're talking about that it was just a group of people there, a group of the Sanhedrin. How do you know he's rebelling against the whole Sanhedrin? Maybe the other ones that weren't there would actually agree with the Zaken Mamre, with this rebellious elder.
Dissident. When you rebel, it's like a dissident.
Dissident, yeah. Is that what do they call him there?
Rebellious.
Rebellious.
Rebellion.
Strong. So the Gemara says,
what is he disagreeing about at this point? Is this just in general, the halakha is about Zaken Mamre, or is this specific to the Egla Rufa?
No, it's nothing to do with Egla Rufa.
Okay.
What we're doing now is we're going to bring a proof from a Zaken Mamre that what Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov holds about the Egla Rufa. We had a question. Does he want the whole Sanhedrin there? Or does he want just 3 or 5? So we said, by the Zaken Mamre, how many people were there? So we said it had to be everyone. It can't have been. Ela Pshita D'Nafakula, must be everyone went out. The whole Sanhedrin was there. Olamai, and what were they going for? Ilad Varishus, if it was just a voluntary matter, Mimatzi Nafki, were they allowed to go? They weren't allowed to leave. Vaksiv, Shararech, Agan Hasar, Al Yechzar Amazik. This literally means your navel is like a round goblet, which is not missing the mixed wine. This is the 7th chapter of Shir Hashirim, where there's a lot of imagery of his beloved. So what that means, Shirarech, your navel, is actually referring to the Sanhedrin, which was on the center, just like the navel is the center of the body. So the Sanhedrin has to be in the center of the of Eretz Yisrael. I guess it means Yerushalayim, and they were and it's in like a round goblet, which is referring because they sat in a semicircle. And Al Yachzar Mezeg means that they needed to have 23 judges, which means like this. How much the way? Let's take a look. If one of them needs to leave, if someone needs to leave, you have to leave at least a Sanhedrin Katana there. You can't have everyone leaving. By the time of when the court's supposed to be open, they have to have the Sanhedrin there. But it doesn't mean the whole Sanhedrin. There has to be at least 23. Now, the way they get this from Al Yechzar Mazik is that the way wine was diluted was 1 part to 2 parts water. 1 part wine, 2 parts water. So if you divide 71 by 3, you'll get 23. 23 by 6. So
plus 2.
Y plus 2.
3 times 23 is 69.
Oh, okay. But you'll get, but just by 3, yeah. Okay. Plus 2. So but that will be at least the Sanhedrin Katana. Sanhedrin Katana. Okay. As a whole number, it's divisible by 23. Right. So we're saying that you need to have the Sanhedrin there, and they weren't allowed to go. It must be that what was the Sanhedrin doing when they were going to this place where the Zaken Mamre rebelled? That must have been for a mitzvah. Lamais, what were they going for? Lav lemedidas egla. Was it not that they were going to measure some place where someone had been murdered, and they're going to check to see how distant the city was. For Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and it's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that says that the whole Sanhedrin goes. Okay, so Rabbi Yosef says we have a proof that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov holds, and not only does the king and the Kohen Gadol go, but also the whole Sanhedrin. It wasn't just 3 or 5. Amalei Abaya tells to Rabbi Yosef. Abaya is a student of Rabbi Yosef. Says, "Loi, it's not necessarily the way you're saying. Could be Dilma Lahisav Alayir Valazaris. Maybe he's just going to add on to the city. The Sanhedrin was going to increase the size of the city, which over there it says Keditnana was taught in a Mishnah. In Mesifan Alayir Valazaris, Alabezan Shoshim Ve'achad. You're going to increase the size of the city, or if you're going to increase the size of the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, you have to have the Sanhedrin there."
This is the Sanhedrin, which is 71. That's just Sanhedrin is 23, so it's city doesn't match.
No,
When it's talking about 19,
no, it's saying that they weren't allowed to go unless you had 23 that were left. Members of the Sanhedrin were allowed to leave, but they weren't allowed to leave less than 23 there. Okay, so if that's the case, then it must be that they were going for a mitzvah. Because if we said that you had everyone there. So if you had everyone there, so then it must be the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, because they were going to the mitzvah to measure the city, the closest city from the corpse. So Abaya says no, maybe they're just going to do some city surveying, see if they can increase the size of the city, and it has nothing to do with the corpse. We have a support for Rabbi Yosef. It says Matzana Beis Pagi v'Himra Aleim. They found that the Zakin Mamre was rebellious at Beis Pagi. And Kagain, what were the Sanhedrin doing there? Either they went to measure the Egla Rufa, or they went to increase the size of the city. Maybe the rebellion should be considered a rebellion. It says no, the only time it's considered a rebellion is if they're in the actual place of the Sanhedrin, which means in the Lishkas Agazas. But this is a support for Rabbi Yosef, because one of the examples here is where they're going to measure for the Egla Rufa, which means that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov would hold that the entire Sanhedrin goes.
They call it the hewn chamber.
Yeah.
What's the Hebrew of that?
Gazas. That means the stones were there.
Which of those buildings was?
It was, if you're walking into the Sanhedrin, he's asking where was the Sanhedrin?
One that looks like it's hewn out of stone.
Yeah, if you're walking into it would be on the right in the corner, right when you go through the doors.
It's in the Torah.
And also, it says that they might have gone out to expand the courtyards. That's why they were going out. It says in the footnote that you need a king, a prophet, and the Urim, the Tumim,
Right,
and Sanhedrin 71 to expand.
right.
But the boundaries were so fixed or so
Right.
holy. Or
The way that it was built was with prophecy. Some English.
Is it like the urban development boundary that we have today?
What?
The urban development boundary. I'm trying to relate it to what we have today, where it's a big deal to expand the city.
Does that ever happen, where they changed the size of the city?
When the real estate agents want to make more money,
Only when they drive there.
that was the whole controversy that I worked on.
Right. Yeah, but city borders don't change, right? Do they?
The Western.
Unless you live in Muncie.
Oh,
You know the
Yeah.
village of Kesser?
what was that?
The village of Kesser or Keter in Muncie is it's a creation of Vishnitz. And
Okay.
they expanded to include individual houses owned by Vishnitz.
Uh-huh.
It's really a weird thing.
Interesting.
And then they changed the zoning, so there are no limits on the number of people or families that can live in a house.
Uh-huh.
But with respect to adding to the city, was that required of anything except Yerushalayim for the Sanhedrin?
I don't think so. I don't have any information here.
So what
But-
are they at? What are they measuring? You know it's in Yerushalayim.
Rashi says that it was Yerushalayim. So it must be the adding to the city of Yerushalayim had special halachas. Maybe, Meiser Sheni is only allowed to be eaten in Yerushalayim.
Right.
In Kabbalah, so it can only be within the city.
Right.
So you change the wall, change the city. So you needed a Sanhedrin there. In the temple courtyards, right? Okay. He's asking if it's other cities.
So this,
No, that doesn't say.
this Yerushalayim was much smaller than what we call Yerushalayim today.
Yeah, I don't know. The Yerushalayim today there's a new city, an old city. I assume we're talking about the old city.
Old city.
Okay. All the quarters. Okay, Nimtza Taman Begal, Aitali Be'ilan. If the corpse was found in a mound or if it's hanging on a tree,
Go back to the corpse.
back to the corpse, yeah. Let's say that our mission is Rabbi Yehuda and not the Rabbanan. Well, we had a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon, which has nothing to do with this. And now we're talking about the corpse. We're going to mention Rabbi Yehuda now in a totally different context. Says the Tani was taught in the Brayse b'shechachta imer basada. If you forget a bundle in the field, you're not supposed to go back and take it. You're supposed to leave it for the poor. Prat letaman. This is coming to exclude if that bundle was hidden. The bundle was hidden, that you hid it, so then you don't have to leave it there for the poor. Div Rabbi Yehuda. And if you forget a bundle in the field, the rabbi says a taman, it's coming to include the taman, that you do have to leave it for the poor. Well, what would happen is like this. Now, according to what we're saying, is that if the corpse, we said, was on the field, on the ground, and found in the field, we said that you don't, if it was hidden, then you don't do the egla rufa, you don't do the breaking the neck of the heifer. If we would say it fits with Rabbi Yehuda, so then the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says when it says about the bundle, it says that in the field means that it's not hidden, which means that by us, when we say you find the corpse in the field, it means that it's not hidden. If it would be the Chachamim, then we would say that even if it is hidden, because the bundle hidden is considered in the field, and so the corpse also would be considered, even if it's hidden, would be considered in the field. Amar Rav says not necessarily so. You're trying to say that our Mishnah is limited to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. It's not necessarily so. Afilu Teimer Rabbanan. We could even say that the Mishnah is the opinion of the Chachamim. Hacham Inyana Dekra, some Inyana Dekra. Depends. You have to read the verses carefully. Read the verses and you'll see that the Chachamim will agree with us that if it's hidden, you don't do the Egla Rufa. Right. So we have hidden. Oh, and you're saying it doesn't need to be concealed in a pile of stones. It could be any way concealed. Even under the earth. That's what you mean? Even under the earth?
Even in earth.
In earth. Does that mean hidden in the ground? It sounds like it's buried.
If the murderer buried the guy, he doesn't have to worry about it.
According to our Mishnah, you don't. Okay. Meiri. Okay. Hillel's mentioning a Meiri in the Koran that they quote, that when it says in the Mishnah, in the pile of stones, it doesn't necessarily mean stones. It could mean in anything. Okay. Amar Rav, so Rav says, I feel Tim Rabbanachim on the cross. Ksiv says in the pasuk, Kimatzei Chalal, find the corpse. Eicha de Mishtakach, that would be wherever you find it. Doesn't matter. However, the pasuk goes on, it says Ba'adama, on the ground. Prat l'taman, that's excluding if it's hidden. Has to be on the ground. So we see that the corpse needs to be on the ground and not hidden. and that the Chacham would agree with. So why do they say by the Omer that if it's hidden, it doesn't apply? If it's hidden, it does apply. Over there, you have to read the psukim. It says, when you're harvesting the field and you forget a bundle. Harvesting is similar to forgetting, or forgetting is similar to harvesting. Just like when you harvest, obviously everything is exposed. Also, when you're forgetting, it's exposed. Because Rachmana Basada, when it says Basada over there, it's coming to tell me that even if it's hidden, it still applies. So the Chachamim over there say that I would have known exposed without the word Basada. So why do I need Basada? To teach me that even if it's hidden. Rapayas, I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought that only if it I would have thought even if it's hidden, comes to tell me ba'adama on the ground to tell me only if it's exposed. In other words, what was my first premise? Then the extra word is going to tell me the opposite. So basada by the Aimer, by the bundle over there, I would have thought that only if it's exposed. Comes to tell me basada to teach me even if it's not exposed, even if it's concealed. By the corpse, I would have thought even if it's concealed. This is the Chachamim. Comes the word ba'adama to tell me only if it's exposed. Right? So in other words, the Chachamim would agree with our Mishnah that only if it's exposed, even though they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda in the regarding the bundle. The Gemara now says, how does Rabbi Yehuda not say, but the Chachamim say? It's so obvious that basada must be coming to include, even if it's concealed. But we're talking about the bundle, because it starts off saying, Shikha dumya de katzer, that forgetting is similar to exposed, just like exposed is just like the harvest is exposed, so too the forgetting has to be exposed. So it comes along the sada to teach me that even if it's concealed. Why does Rabbi Yehuda not say that? Why does Rabbi Yehuda say that if it's concealed you don't have to? Rabbi Yehuda nami typically mishichet demid katzer. Umar says you're right. Enechanami. He says that alabasada lamali. So what happens is like this. Once you have exposed from harvest, the harvest is exposed. So too the forgetting needs to be exposed. That's Rabbi Yehuda's view right there. So why did the sages argue? The sages said because the word basada is teaching me something else. It's teaching me that even if it's concealed. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with basada? Because he doesn't teach me even if it's concealed. He says only if it's exposed and not if it's concealed. So he says, what does he do with basada? That teaches me, if you forget standing grain that you didn't actually harvest, the same halacha applies, that you don't go back to take it. Okay, so he learns that from basada. So now the Gemara says, where do the Rabbanan know that if you forget standing grain that you don't go back to harvest it? Tiktzar ketircha basadcha. Bisadecha. Let me just get the pasuk. This is in Seitzei. Valid. Okay, so over here it says, Ki siktzar ketircha bisadecha. Warning.
Trying to stall them.
It says when you reap your harvest in your field and forget a single bundle behind you in the field, you may not go back to take it. It must be left for the convert, the orphan, the widow, so that God, your God, will bless you in everything you do. Well, we're saying that it doesn't only apply to what you harvested, it's even applying to to stalks that were not harvested yet. You forget to harvest one for some standing grain. Where do we know that from? It says when you harvest your harvest in your field. Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do with that? I guess that extra verse, a double expression. He says, oh, that's what you have to do. You have to add in the word v'shachachta, and you will forget. So that word of bisadecha v'shachachta is that you forget part of your field. In your field, you forget part of the field to harvest. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with that? He uses it for what Rabbi Vo says in the name of Rabbi Lazar. Damar Rabbi Vo, Amar Rabbi Lazar Prat. This is coming to exclude l'shetzafu aimrim l'teich stei chaverei. If your bundles floated into your neighbor's field magically by the wind, so what happens then? Do we say that it's considered forgotten? And we say no, it's not considered forgotten. You could still go and take it. If the wind blew it into your neighbor's field, so you can go back and take it, even though you didn't realize that it was there. Don't say, oh, you forgot it. You have to leave it to the poor. No, he's allowed to go back. That's what he does with bisadecha. That is only if it's forgotten in your field.
It's not considered trespassing. I mean, you got to go into his neighbor's field to get his stuff back.
Yeah, he is allowed to do that if the guy doesn't let him.
What about if your fruit flew over or either stalks, other things? Any
Well,
produce?
the same thing would apply. If it grows over his field, that would be different.
Yeah.
We're talking about that it grew in your field,
It rolled
in the
down,
wind.
watermelon rolled down.
Right.
hill.
Just to make sure he doesn't have a shotgun.
Right.
Rifle Association. Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan do? How do they know that? The fact that it says your field, that's where they learn that from. Rabbi Yehuda, besada besadecha le'mashmalei. Okay, so what comes out here is that the Rabbanan have the standing grain. They learn from besadcha, besadecha, v'shachachta. That's where they know the standing grain that if you forget it. And where do they know that if it's not in your field? It says it could have said besade v'shachachta. What is besadecha v'shachachta? That's how they learn it from. Rabbi Yehuda says no. He learns from the word basada is teaching me the standing grain. See, there's two basadas here. There's kisikzer ketircha bisadecha v'shachachta oimer basada. So he learns from the basada to teach me that it's even the standing grain. What do the Rabbanan do with basada? The Rabbanan with basada tell me that it's coming to include even if it's hidden. What do they do with bisadecha? That's teaching me two things. One is it's teaching me the standing grain, and it's also also teaching me if it floated into your friend's field, it's not considered forgotten. Okay. Boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah has a question. Let's say it floated in your own field. It means that it was placed somewhere up high, top of some rocks, on top of some other things. Do we say that it's forgotten? Or do we say that it's not forgotten? We learned from Bisadecha that it needs to be in your field. Okay, so Avir Sadak Sadadami, do we say that the airspace of the field is considered the field and it's fine? And it was not fine, it means if it's forgotten, it belongs to the poor. Maybe we say it's not considered the field, it's in the airspace. It's a general question about airspace, maybe, I don't know. Amalei Rav Kana Rav Papi, Vamaler Rav Kana Rav Zvid. So this was a discussion. Rav Kana says to Rav Papi, and some say that Rav Kana said to Rav Zvid, Tifsha Lemi de Rabbi Vo, Amar Rabbi Lazar. You can answer this because Rabbi Vo said the name of Rabbi Lazar. Dem Pratlish Tzafar L'Teich Sedei Chaverai, the Chaverai Yin L'Teich Sedei Olai. What was the example that he used? That when it's exempt from leaving for the poor, that's if it floated into the friend's field. Notice he didn't say if it was up high in your own field. Why? Because if it was in your own field up high, then you would have to leave it for the poor. It's only when it floated into the friend's field that you don't need to leave it for the poor. According to what you're saying, if it was floating in your friend's field, that's what we would end up saying. But if it's placed in your friend's field, then you would say you would have to leave it for the poor. But it's not in your field. Ella must say, even if it's in your friend's field, even if it's on the ground, it still doesn't need to be left to the poor. By the kamer tzafu. So why did they say tzafu? That it's floating? Because that was the only way that it would end up there was if it floated.
Did we go into the idea of why if a corpse was floating or hung in a tree or under rocks, is that considered buried almost? So
We didn't really discuss that. All we said was that it wasn't on the ground, and because it wasn't on the ground, so we said that the law of Eglaruf. I guess what you're bringing up, is the issue over here that it was left exposed, open, and not buried. The murderer should have at least had the decency to bury.
it seems like,
And if he
it
would have
was
buried, that would have been fine.
there was some tampering, had to bury it in water, rocks over it. It was almost like a semi-burial almost.
Yeah. Okay, so we still don't have an answer. So we're saying that tzafu doesn't mean anything. Tzafu was the example of how it got there, but we don't have any explanation. So why didn't he say if it's up high in your own place? Okay. Tzafu doesn't tell me anything. Okay. Tashma. Let's see another proof. Let's say there's a bundle that you grabbed it, you were going to take it to the city. And the phone rang, picked it up, you put the bundle down on the what is that?
It's erase it.
So we placed it on top of another sheet.
So he puts it on top of another sheaf, and he forgets them. The rule is that according to this opinion, that the lower one is considered shikha because it's on the ground. But the upper one, which is floating, is not considered shikha. That's what the Gemara is going to think right now. So you say floating, even in your own property, we're going to bring a proof on, is not going to be shikha. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, Reb Shimon. Shikha means they have to leave for the poor. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says the name of Reb Shimon. They're both not shikha. He's following the opinion of Reb Yehuda. The taman, you don't have to leave for the poor, and that's underneath. And the upper one because it's floating. Now the Gemara explains, the whole machlekes here was about the lower one. But the upper one, everyone agrees it's not shikha, which means both the opinion, the Tanakama here, and Reb Shimon hold that the upper one floating is not shikha. We seem to have a proof. The Gemara says, no, you got it wrong. Shani Hassam, given the Achzik Be Zachabe. You missed the beginning of the sentence. Beginning of the sentence was that you grabbed it in order to go to the city. This is like that joke when they say you're the bus driver. At this stop you drop off 5 and you pick up 7, and next thing you drop off this. And then at the end of this long thing, they ask you, so who's the bus driver? And you miss that they said you're the bus driver. So here, anyway, we started off with this. He grabbed it to go into a city, but then you get confused with, you put it on top of another one and the lower one and the upper one and this. But really, the main point over here was that you grabbed it. You grabbed it. You were going to take it. So once you take it, then you don't have the loss of shikha. So why do you have to mix me up with telling me that you put it on top of another bundle? If once you grab it, it doesn't need to be on top of a bundle. Even if you put it down, that was just like a distraction. And the Gemara says, you're right. The reason why you said that it was on top of another one was just to tell me that the other one was going to be covered. But for this one, it didn't matter. It says, but Reb Shimon said, because it's floating. And you're telling me it has nothing to do with floating. It has to do with because you grabbed it once. My answer is it's as if it's floating, which means it's as if it's in his hands. It's as if floating is as if it's still in his hands because he grabbed it once. It doesn't go to the poor once he started to take it.
Whoa.
But the one on the bottom.
The one on the bottom was machlokes if regarding cover. No, yeah. Do we say that covered is considered shikha or not? That's the machlokes before. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Rashi explains over here that Abaya was in a very good mood. And Abaya lived in Pumpadisa. And he said, he made a comment like this. Harini ki benazai b'shukei Tveria. Today, I'm like Benazai in the streets in the marketplace of Tveria. It's like Benazai was like the greatest sage. He says, today, you can ask me anything you want. I'll be able to, I'm feeling like I can answer any question. So,
Would he be even, and Azai would be in the market itself and he would answer questions?
that's what it sounds like.
He's saying that.
Me, where I am today, I can answer questions like Benazai would do.
So that means he wasn't distracted by the marketplace or something?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Open mic.
The stock market at those times.
So, who made the Rabbanan? This one of the students asked Abaya, "Shnei chalalim zel gav zeh, mehechanu maidid." You have 2 corpses, one on top of another one. Where do you measure from? Okay, so now the question here, there's 4 possibilities. Okay. Min b'minai havi taman. When you hide something inside another thing, like you cover it up, one corpse on top of another corpse, the lower corpse is considered concealed. Umin b'minai le havi tzaf. But then I would say, there's a possibility that I could say that the lower one is considered covered, concealed, so you're not going to count from the lower one. And the upper one is not considered hovering, floating. So there it's considered on the ground. So Me'alyan might you would measure from the upper one.
Why would you say it?
It's just a possibility. There's another possibility. Maybe we say that no, even though it's on the same type, it's just another corpse under it, we still consider it floating. And one thing covering over the same item is not considered taman. So the lower one is, the upper one has a problem because it's floating. The lower one is not considered covered. You measure from the lower one. Or maybe we could say, the upper one is covering the lower one. So that rules out the lower one. And the upper one is considered floating as well. So it rules out the upper one. You can't measure from the lower one because it's covered. You can't measure from the upper one because it's floating. Now that's 3 possibilities. Rashi gives us the 4th possibility. He says maybe we say that something covering another item of itself, in other words, a corpse covering corpse, is not considered taman. right? Because it's the same thing. It's not considered concealed, the lower one. And I would say that a corpse on top of a corpse is not considered floating. And I have to measure from both of them.
Oh,
Another option.
Doesn't matter. They're both in the same area.
Well, if they're next to a city, which city is going to have to do this?
Game of
Let's say
inches, baby.
they're
Big game of
laying.
inches.
What is that?
Big game of inches.
Game of inches. Right.
what about these big cemeteries where they're all stacked up? And
Right.
and they do the topmost one,
Oh, but that would be covered if
and they're
it's
covered.
right, unless they're.
Unless the Rashi ones where it's all the same.
I'm gonna know, but those but like the
Stacked.
mausoleum,
Yeah.
but that would be in a pile of stones.
Oh, they put stones on the sides. So you only see the top one. And
Then it won't count if it's in a pile of stones. You don't do it if it's in a pile of stones.
you know what they do now also? They find when you excavate it, is cemetery put one there, ran out of space, put another one on top. You thought you were burying your loved one, and they put this really it's shared apartment on the ground.
Uh.
But if they're above ground, then you have this question. You don't do that. No, this is a scandal.
They find these things all the time, and the cemeteries are.
Cheating, yeah. Business. Where they find the bodies, the coffin thrown away. Started it. Families might.
Amalei. So this is a big question. Then this Abai is in a good mood. He asked him this question. Amalei,
Why do you say
Tanisua.
Abai is in a good mood? What is that?
Because he said you can ask me any question today.
And
So he said, okay, you asked for it.
Himself on
He
the
said,
first.
Tanisua, we have a Mishnah. It says, Omer, or maybe a Brisa. Omer Sheikh Sikbay, we're on top of 45b. Omer Sheikh Sikbay Leilicha Leir. If there's a bundle that was, he grabbed it to take it to the city, and he put it on top of his friend and he forgot it. The lower one is considered forgotten. The upper one is considered floating. It's not forgotten, possibly floating. They're both not considered shikha. Bottom one because it's concealed. And the upper one because it's floating. Savrua, and they understood the Hani Tanaik Rabbi Yehuda Sfirlu. Everyone holds that if it's concealed, it's not considered taman. I'm sorry, if it's concealed, it's not considered shikha. If it's taman, it's not considered shikha. Everyone agrees with Rabbi Yehuda. Taman means concealed. My lab b'hakamiflagi, and this is what the machlekes would be. The Mar Savar Reb Shimon holds min b'mina ave taman. That if it's one type on top of another type, it's considered concealed. Mar Savar and the Tanakama holds lo yavi taman. It's not considered concealed. You see, what would we say now? Say that it turns out that it's actually a machlekes. Do we say min b'minai, one bundle on top of another bundle, or back to us, one corpse on top of another corpse? Do we say that that the lower one is considered taman? That's a machlekes. Okay, Abai is trying to answer the question, at least with one of the possibilities. That we have a machlekes here regarding the taman. What about the floating? That he didn't answer yet.
And again, what does it mean if a corpse is tamun? What's the theory?
If it's taman, then you don't do the egla rufa for it. We're talking about you found two corpses. Which one do you do the egla rufa for? One's on top of the other.
I remember there's a sikha from the Rebbe on this.
Uh-huh.
The Rebbe said the whole point of all this was that it's such an odd thing to do that it would get people talking, and through the talking, it might come out who the murderer was.
Uh-huh.
So if you look at it from that point of view, you come to the conclusion that Talmud or not Talmud, you do this so you encourage.
Right. Right. But we say everyone agrees that taman you don't do it. Right. We didn't have any opinions about that. We only had by the Omer, we had a machlekes about taman. Now we have a question: is it considered taman if it's covered by another item that's similar to itself. So that we're trying to extrapolate from the Aimer that if one bundle on top of another bundle, that would tell me the same thing applies to one corpse on top of another corpse. Is it considered taman or not? That we say right now it's a machlaikas. The Gemara says lie. Ikra Yehuda Svirlu, if you hold that taman is exempt from the Aimer, then the Kuli Alma min b'minay havi taman, everyone would agree that it is taman. Everyone would agree that this is taman, that this is considered concealed and it's exempt. But rather, over here, the machlaikas is it considered, is taman exempt or not? And it goes like this. The Rabbanan Kirabanan. The Rabbanan say taman is chai if they argue with Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore here, the Tanakama holds that the lower one is chayav in the talif for the poor. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, in Reb Shimon ben Yehuda that says the lower one is exempt. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda. He says, Yachi Mayer El Gabe Chaveirei. So why do you have to tell me if it's just taman? Why do you have to give me this example that you put it on top of another bundle? That doesn't matter. I feel about for it sarnami. Even if it would have been concealed in dirt, the same halach would apply. That taman is still considered, according to according to the Tanakama, it's chayav, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, spotted. Gemara says, you're right. It's coming to tell you the strength of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that taman is so exempt that even if it's taman, even if it's concealed under another bundle, it's also considered concealed and it's exempt. Yeah. Okay. Chalal. A corpse. Chalal is referring to a corpse that was killed by a wound from a knife, like a sword.
Still murder.
But not if he was strangled. Chalal, only if he was killed, and not if he is, what's the word for that? Still twitching. Ba'adama, on the ground, taman magal, and not if it's concealed when in a pile of stones. Naifel, that he fell to the ground, not if he was hanging from a tree. The sada is on the field, and not if he's floating in the water. Rabbi Lazar says, all of them, doesn't matter if he was killed by a wound from a sword, from a knife. So then you do the egla rufa. Doesn't matter taman or not. This is the first time we're going to have that opinion. That it doesn't matter taman or hanging. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, Amar Leila Rabbi Lazar, that we have a brisa where Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda says to Rabbi Lazar, you do agree that it needs to be chalal, it needs to be a wound from a knife, from a sword. So why are you saying alma chalal v'leichanak? It means obviously you're taking the word chalal seriously. So chanami ba'adama v'lei taman begal, knife v'lei talblim, besad v'lei tzafel gamra. How come you don't take all the other limudim seriously? That it can't be if it's concealed, it can't be hanging from a tree, it can't be. How come you say that the same thing applies? Rabbi Lazar Chal Yiserichsev. Rabbi Lazar says that it says chalal twice. Akrevim ala chalal says a bunch of times the word chalal. It's coming to tell me that I have to take serious, that not if it was strangled, not if he choked, because it says an extra time chalal. But the other things I don't take serious, it only says it once. If it's found next to the border or next to a city that's majority is not Jewish, you don't do it. The kimatzei pratlamatzi, if you would find, this is coming to exclude a common case where people are always dying over there. It's on the border, a dangerous area. Or a city that doesn't have a court, because you need the elders of the city and you don't have them. It says the elders of the city need to go. You only measure to a city that has a court. Pshita. We said that a city that doesn't have a besdin, you don't. And obviously, you only measure to a besdin city that does. The Gemara says, "Hakamash Malan Kedetanya," is coming to teach us what it was taught in a brisa. This was going to answer our question, hopefully. How do you know that you ignore the city that doesn't have a Besdin, and you still measure it to the city, to Boston, right? The elders of the city, the elders of that city, wherever it is, even if it's not the closest city, but as long as it's the city that has the Besdin, they still go and take it. Is that the shot? Is that what it says? That they take it, that the elders of the city with the Besdin will take it.
Did it say you measure from the corpse all the way to the basin of the city? Or
No,
just-
it's just in the city. Okay, we have another Mishnah here. Let's just go a little further. Nimtza mechuven beit steiros, if it's exactly between two cities. Because of the twin cities. It could be exactly.
Do we know the
Cities are exactly right
method
there.
in which they measured something back in those days?
Professor
It wasn't much
said it
less
was,
than
it
like
was laser.
Yeah, right.
They use ropes and sticks probably. It says if it's exactly between two cities, Rabbi Eliezer says that they bring two. Each city is going to bring one. Bein Yerushalayim meviim egla rufa. Yerushalayim does not bring an egla rufa. Nimtza reisha b'makom echad, begufa b'makom echad. Let's say they find the head severed from the body, and so what did they do? So right here, we think we're talking about where you measure from, but actually, the Gemara is going to explain. We're talking about where how you do the burial. But what you do is nimtza, you melichin haray sheitz laguf. You bring the head to the body. Sounds a little lighter. Div Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Kiva Imra guf eitz alareish. Rabbi Kiva says, no, not looking for the easy way out. You bring the body to the head. You're going to see it's nothing to do with easy or not. From where would they measure? Which part of the body? Rabbi Eliezer would measure from his belly button. Rabbi Kiva says they measure from the nose. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov from the place where he was cut, which is from his neck.
Oh,
My time with Rabbi Eliezer. What's the reason why Rabbi Eliezer says that you bring two egla rufas? The Gemara says this is interesting. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that it's possible to do an exact measurement, and if it's exactly the same, then what does it mean close? It must mean that both of them. If I would say that it's impossible to do an exact measurement and everything is just estimated, then I would say that, well, I can't figure out which one is the real one. So, but when it says that you measure to the closest city, there's only one of them which is really the real one. But now that it's possible to do an exact measurement, so then when it says closest, maybe it really means that they're both the closest. So that's why he says that it means even if it's a plural, even two. In Yerushalayim, maybe a megla rufa. Yerushalayim doesn't bring an egla rufa. Because it says in the land that you will inherit. Yerushalayim wasn't divided. It's not part of the inheritance. If the head is in one place, so there's machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. If you bring the body to the head or the head to the body, what's the machlekes? If they're talking about where you measure from kamiflagi, that's the machlekes. If you're talking about where you measure from, so it says later on, where do you measure from? Obviously, over here, we're not talking about where you measure from. Over here, they're arguing regarding a meis mitzvah, acquiring the location that it was killed, that it was found. You find it right there. So it gets buried exactly where you find it. This is what it says. This is what he's saying. When you're coming to bury it, it acquires the location. In other words, you bury it right there. You dig right under where it is and you bury it. Let's say the head is found somewhere else. But do you bury them separately? No. You bring the head to the body, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Kiva, you bring the body to the head. Well, they're going to actually dig right under that spot. And then, yeah. What is the machlekes? Why do they say this? The one opinion holds that the body fell down exactly where it was killed, and the head rolled away. The other opinion holds when he chopped off the head, the murderer, so the head fell right down. Gufa who derat vassal, but the body was still running.
Whoa, chicken with that.
Yeah. So you bring the body back to where it was killed, to the head, according to Rabbi Akiva. Ma'ayin how you might
It
have
could
been.
be like if someone's riding on a horse,
Yeah.
the horse kept going with the body,
It's just Sleepy Hollow.
or
Think
that
about
too,
a
yeah.
train.
Headless horse.
What is this?
Headless horse.
Uh-huh.
No.
What is the
That's
headless
like
horseman?
Scooby-Doo stuff.
I'll tell you that. Think about the train. It's supposed to be.
Is this
Sleepy
like a?
Channel, Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Is this a book?
Yeah.
How old is that? 1700s.
Still around.
Okay.
But
They
it's
forgot
still
to teach
around
that to me
today.
in
It
yeshiva.
still goes today.
Oh.
At night. Headless horse.
Field trip.
Okay. So may ayin how you might have been, where would they measure from? But my commitment. What is the machlekes? This is where we measure the city. What we're talking about before is where we measure. What we're talking about before is where we bury the body. Now we're talking about where do you measure to which city it is. Marsavar, what's the machlekes? One opinion holds ikachi sabape, that the main life of the person is in his nostrils. Marsavar ikachi sabitibure. Apim doesn't have to mean nostrils, could mean face. Do they say face or nostrils? No, that's the second opinion.
Mainly his nose.
His nose. Api, they say, is his nose. Uh-huh. It could mean apayim,
No.
or like it could mean the face, or it could mean the nostrils. Well, like ze'er anpin means small faces, or arech anpin means long faces. But I saw Rabbi Ginsburg says it means small nostrils or long nostrils. It's, breath.
According to Rabbi Akiva, the nose is the most important location on the body because facial identification is enabled by the structure
Right.
of the center of the face.
Right, exactly. So it goes like this.
Rabbi Akiva, no AI.
Marsavar ikachis b'tzibur. The other opinion says the main thing is the navel. Lema kiani tanai. Let's say that they follow these tanai. Mehechan hablad naitzer. Where is the fetus formed from? Where does it start? One opinion says Miraishe, starts from the head. You pulled me out from the womb, from my mother's womb. Shave off your head and throw it. Well, shave off your hair and throw it. But that's talking about the head. So the body is formed from the head in utero. It's formed from the navel. Abishal says starts at the navel and it spreads out its roots to both sides. Where it says Afilotema Abishal, you could say that it's following Abishal. Adkan like Abishal in Yitzirat, Chimis Yatzer, Vlad, Mimityasim Mitztai. It could be that everything really is, even Abishal would say that you measure from the nose, because when it comes to the life, he agrees that it goes from the nose. It was only how was it formed? It's formed from the center. Anyone that has a living spirit in his nostrils. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that from where he becomes a chalal, that's from the neck. My time with Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. What's the reason for Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov? To place you on the neck of the wicked corpses. Okay, I guess we'll leave it here. Still a page behind. Okay.